Great. Welcome to the Winfield Board meeting, Winfield Fire Protection Board meeting, October 19th, 2021. Let's call the meeting to order. Bill, would you lead us in the pledge?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So we have roll call.
Yes, President Kellis. Present. Secretary Sass.
Present accounted for.
Treasurer Hannan.
Here.
Trustee Saylor. Here. Trustee Simpson.
Here.
Also present, Chief Evans, Deputy Chief Ermer, and Attorney Rivera.
We are going to do a swearing in for our deputy chief and a new fire person. We are going to go to one of our trustees' phones and hope that this is successful. If it's not, I apologize. We will be back in several minutes.
Well, we'll never be gone.
And then that needs to come up with this. You guys have this? Yeah.
You can do that.
I am. Wait. You know what? Let's put it right here. Let's put the other one right here and they can do it. Chief, where do I do it? Right here. Right there? There you go. Just sit down with it.
All right, thank you everyone for the wait. We had a series of technical difficulties which are all resolved. Thank you for joining us for the swearing in of our newest member, Rivera, and Deputy Chief Ermer. So this is a big moment for us. We're up to full complete staffing and all full time. So this is a big change for us and a big start of a new era. And thank you for coming and joining us to celebrate that. So for starters, I'm going to bring forward Nick Rivera. You're first. So Nick joined us in March of 2020. We sponsored him to go to the fire academy. Went to the fire academy. Joined us as one of our 10 members. Got hired September 15th. So it's been a Winfield person. So thank you for that. And Trustee Sass.
I am Nicholas Rivera. Here do by declare and affirm. Do hereby declare and affirm that I shall faithfully perform the duties. That I shall faithfully perform the duties of the office of firefighter.
Pretty much everything. So, joined us on September 21st. And
I don't. I was worried as a reading test.
Okay, I, Eric Ermer,
I, Eric Ermer,
do hereby declare and affirm
do hereby declare and affirm
that I shall faithfully perform
that I shall faithfully perform
the duties of the office of Deputy Chief
the duties of the office of Deputy Chief
for the Winfield Fire Protection District
for the Winfield Fire Protection District
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability,
that I shall at all times,
that I shall at all times,
in execution of my duties,
in execution of my duties,
uphold the rules and regulations
uphold the rules and
and
regulations
the ordinance of the Winfield Fire Protection District
and the ordinance of the Winfield Fire Protection District
and of the DuPage County.
and of the DuPage County.
I also declare and affirm
I also declare and affirm
that I will at all times uphold the laws
that I'll at all times uphold the laws
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois
and the United States of America.
and the United States of America.
Congratulations.
I wasn't sure.
Sitting on Eric's badge is going to be his wife Haley. Congratulations, everybody. And again, thank you for joining us tonight. And I have a meeting.
We have a meeting. Grab some cake for the three of you.
Couple of minutes. Please enjoy some refreshments over on the side. Take a few minutes. We'll give you a few minutes to talk to everybody.
All right.
A few minutes to talk to everybody.
With Nick in the middle.
Hey, George, do these at the next meeting? We have a guest. Is there already?
Did we approve them?
We didn't yet. There was a motion and a second, but there was not actually
Your
a
vote.
vote yet. Sorry.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, now. Do you have any remarks?
I do.
I thought you might.
I always have like that.
Yeah.
You know,
I'm new to turn.
give me a microphone and I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
I'm new to turning.
That's an oxymoron of ever. Congratulations on this. This is very cool. I'm glad you guys could do this with the public. And I'm glad that it's on Facebook and on YouTube. That's the kind of stuff the public needs to see from you guys. My public comments are a little bit different. I took some time to reflect on the meeting, last meeting, and particularly the quote that we don't air our dirty laundry. Bernie will tell you the first rule of public meetings is you don't respond to public comments because they turn into problems. But you know, I gave it some thought and thought that through. Two things I think I want to make sure I've emphasized. One, I think the fire department's got such issues that I think it needs more advocacy from you guys. There are significant issues that need to be addressed, and if you want change, you got to advocate, and you got to have discussions in public that are uncomfortable and may involve other taxing bodies and of that nature, but you got to have those discussions. So if that includes airing dirty laundry, it includes airing dirty laundry. The second thing that I took from the meeting is a little bit of disappointment, and I say that because you had an opportunity with the village president here presenting specific figures on the TIF, and he asked you if you had any questions. There wasn't one question on how the new property development impacts calls or what steps the village took to look at that. Not one question about an increase in terms of the call volumes associated with the buildings that's going to impact the guys. Not one question about potentially increasing the impact fees from the development, so that way more equipment and stuff can be bought for guys working in the fire department. And not one question associated with the loss of revenue, and not one question dealing with what the village could do, or a comment about what the village could do to potentially address the fire department's needs with the development. You know, I'm not trying to be crass or mean in that regard, but I think going back to my original point, there really does need to be more advocacy. And that's an example of an opportunity that could have been utilized to highlight the district's needs, talk about the guys' needs, the equipment needs, and the different things along those lines that was just missed. And I just want to make sure the board is aware that those opportunities exist and you need to take advantage of those when you have them. Even if it means that it makes you put you in an uncomfortable position, I think you got to have that discussion out loud because that's what the public needs to hear in order to get you guys, whatever you decide to do in terms of a referendum or whatever, what else is on the agenda in terms of cutting stuff. That's what the public needs to hear from you. You know, I care about the fire department. I care about the guys that work here. My wife and I have advocated for 2 referendums now, and we plan on doing it. If you go for a 3rd, we plan on doing it at that point. But you know, we really, I mean, that kind of stuff, we do need a little more advocacy in that part. So that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other remarks? Anyone else have anything to say? We're gonna open it up to the people online.
Nobody has raised their hand or presented anything in chat.
Okay, let's go on to reports. Motions, we need to hear our treasurer's report.
Yeah, just one quick note, we've started to receive some grant money back for some of the various grants that we've been awarded. Also, if anybody knows, there's a stack of air packs that are out there, which is the FEMA grant. The materials are now starting to show up as well, which is obviously a really good thing for the guys in our district. So just wanted to add those 2 notes into the report that's in the package. Thank you.
I make a motion to accept the treasurer's report as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So moved.
Chief. Thank you, Mr. President. For this month, as usual, I report on the Alliance training. So technical rescue, the topic was skills assessment for those members who would be part of the technical rescue team, whether it be high angle, confined space, trench rescue, structural collapse, and doing skills assessments with respect to how to make systems, a bunch of technical things, making systems, how to tie certain rope configurations and that kind of thing. That was hosted in Carroll Stream at Station 28. The regular monthly multi-company training for this month was not held because October being Fire Prevention Month, all of the agencies, including us, are out doing fire drills in schools, visiting classes, having classes come visit us. So everyone's schedules tend to be very busy during this month. So there is no multi-company training for this month. Next month's training is going to be emergency procedures, RIT training and that kind of thing. So a downed firefighter, how to declare a mayday, how to rescue a mayday firefighter. It'll be at Station 28 in Carroll Stream. And it's always a good drill, very intense by design, so that if it happens for real, there's that ramped up pressure to help us practice our skill set. Recent incidents of note: on September 19th, both the tender and I went to a fire in Warrenville, an electrical fire on Deal Road. On September 25th, a black shift. The interesting thing about this one is we had a vehicle versus building on an occupancy on Mack Road, because all of the Winfield companies, apparatus, vehicles, and people were all busy on other calls. This entire call was handled by Wheaton, West Chicago. And it was a serious matter, and they did a brilliant job as our neighbors, but it just goes to the point that we oftentimes can't even clear people from the calls that we're on to get to something. This was a good example of that. On September 30th, Deputy Chief went to a fire in Carroll Stream. The interesting thing, I wanted to take a minute, and the reason I'm pointing it out is when chief officers get promoted, whether the battalion chief, some of whom were here for the swearing in, Carroll Stream's battalion chief, West Chicago's battalion chief, were both here for the swearing in. When new chief officers are promoted, whether it's a battalion chief or in our case, a staff chief is appointed or promoted, who doesn't have experience with the Alliance, because we have somewhat unique, I think Deputy could speak to this better than I could. We have somewhat unique, but a very, very good and very, very, very dialed in set of guidelines and how we do our business, which is going back to some of the reports I've had in previous months, why we do such good work. And we do, all of the Alliance towns do really good work. One of the things is when a new chief starts with the Alliance is they're given a period of time where they are afforded and in fact encouraged to jump everybody's calls in the Alliance, the active fires, accidents with extrication, all that kind of stuff, to start getting familiar with the command element of how we do our thing, so they can get their shadow, watch, observe, see how Alliance things unroll. There's a lot of unique things that we do as opposed to a lot of other agencies and a lot of other agencies within our county, and that is like pre-assigned stuff. So in a lot of agencies, in the way we used to be years ago, you show up for a fire, you stage a little bit down the block, await your orders. Command will give you orders, you bring up the appropriate stuff. And now we're very much more proactive. We're in there and we're getting it. So you'll actually have a pre-assigned order that you will deviate from if conditions dictate, but otherwise you go to work doing your thing. So there's all of that means it's in a very aggressive approach towards specifically structural firefighting and some of the other things as well. And that takes a bit of a learning curve, not so much. And so the deputy's been doing that. And in fact, he's gotten a ton of calls. He's been running all over the county for the last few weeks. How many fires so far?
5 or 6 now.
So he's getting up to speed. He won't be much longer, and then he'll. On October 2nd, the engine and I went to a structure fire in Wheaton on Farnham Lane. On October 4th, Black Shift, the tender and Deputy 31 went to a fire on Papworth. That area and a couple of the fires that I'm going to mention tonight are in kind of interface areas where most of our neighboring agencies have predominantly municipal services, so they got hydrants. In a couple of those agencies, Carroll Stream and Wheaton notably, there's some of those interface areas where that's a considerable distance between the hydrants and a particular structure. So it's a little bit of a bridge where they have to bring in, perhaps like in the case of this fire, bring in a tender to nurse the attack engine while they're laying a lot of 1,000, 2,000 feet of hose to establish a positive water source, a fire hydrant. So this is one of those occasions. Actually, we had a couple of them this past month. And this was one of those, and again, the WG responded to that call, so you got to see how that interface worked in the structural fire and getting into the fighting the structural fire and how the Alliance whole concept worked. I think you actually had an assignment on that one too. On October 15th, Gold Shift, County Farm Engineer, Geneva Road, we had an accident with extrication. We were assisted, and thank you very much to those agencies, West Chicago, Carroll Stream, Wheaton, and Warrenville. Also on the 15th, Gold Shift, on the 2 North block of Jefferson in West Chicago, Carroll Streams Fire Protection District, was a structure fire. Same as that one I mentioned previously, where the tender and the deputy chief went to that call. And then last night on Gold Shift, we went, deputy chief and I went to a well-involved structure fire in Warrenville, and crews there did a fantastic job, I might add. As a sidebar, they did a terrific job putting out a fairly substantial fire. Service anniversaries, there's another report for this month. Engine 31 is back. So to update the public, we sent it up. There was severe corrosion on the frame rails, undercarriage, suspension of the apparatus. It was sent up to the factory repair center to be repaired. That stuff was done. It was done really well. Somewhere along the line, there was some freezing in several of the pump features, stuff that holds water in the apparatus. So that after that got completed, there was a whole list of other repairs that had to be done. It came back. There was still a few outstanding issues that Brian Burt, to his credit, did a really good job of making arrangements and getting that navigated. We had to move the radio over from the West Chicago vehicle, the West Chicago engine that we had borrowed while that was gone because we didn't have an engine. So we borrowed their engine, moved the radio over, moved the radio back. So all that stuff's taken care of, and it entered full service a few days ago, and passed pump test, and thus far it's been doing a really good job. So that's the story with that and the status of that. Now, the next part of that is tender 31. As I've pointed out to the board on numerous occasions, while it can function as an engine, it is capable of performing as an engine. It is not. It was never designed to do that. It can do it in a pinch, and it did it for the better part of a year. And as a result, a vehicle that wasn't built to be a still engine, that day in, day out grind of running routine emergency calls, and its size and its weight and all that other stuff, it has caused quite a bit of wear on the vehicle. So it's going out for an extended period of time. What day, sir? Monday. It's going out for an extended period of time for a lot of repairs. And I want to give the tender a lot of credit. It lived a good, hard life responding in that capacity, which it wasn't designed to do. So compliments to the rig. But it's going to be going out for an extended period of time for a lot of repairs.
Do we have arrangements, sorry to interrupt, do we have arrangements for a secondary item, apparatus then?
We still have the West Chicago apparatus. It's in quarters at station 32 in case something happens with engine 31. So we're,
Thank you yet again, West Chicago.
yes,
But there's no tender.
but there's no tender. And tenders, as we know, are a rare commodity. And going back to the calls that I just listed off,
Is that a 500-gallon engine or 1,000 gallon?
I think it's 750. Yeah, 750 gallon tank. Our engine is 1,000 gallons. The tender is 2,500 gallons. A lot of rural fires in the recent past, us and all of the other Alliance towns, and tenders, as I have pointed out on numerous occasions, are becoming a rarer and rarer commodity. So you have us, assuming everything's in its station and in service, us, West Chicago, Bloomingdale, Roselle, York Center, Bartlett, and then Wooddale. And after that, it's a considerable distance before you get one. Another interesting sidebar to that is everyone's tenders are what are referred to as jump companies. So if our engine crew is out in the engine and a tender fire comes in somewhere, they're unable to respond in that tender until they get back and grab it if they can. So tenders are a very valued commodity because when you need them, and you need a bunch of them. So again, we're going to be without a tender for an extended period of time. Yeah.
Is there ever a thought in the Alliance meeting? Is a tender needed, sitting in quarters, but their company, being a jump company, is out of quarters? Is there an arrangement where another district could grab that tender?
There is. We have vehicle sharing agreements, all of us. In fact, we were in a Wheaton ambulance 2 weeks ago because all of our ambulances were dead. So, and the West Chicago engine and et cetera. So we have vehicle sharing agreements, and several agencies do that for certain kinds of calls. For example, if a call comes into the airport for an alert 1 or an alert 2 or an alert 3, they actually have a company that will drive to another station, grab one of the airport firefighting. Now they're all West Chicago companies, but they'll drive to another station, get one of the aircraft firefighting, the ARF vehicles, and respond to that. And similarly, that could be the case in our situation. However, then you have to start getting into travel times and the other stuff. And would our company clear up in time to get back and get their own rig sooner than a Roselle company could get down and grab our
You answered my question. I just want to make sure there was discussion going on, because there are times our tender's sitting here, and if we're out, we're going to be tied up, and we could swing by and grab a tender. I wouldn't have a problem with that. It don't
Yeah.
put out
And those arrangements already do exist. And to that point, the next one I have is about the new engine update. I don't know if you wish to speak.
Tomorrow's our next meeting. The committee's been working and getting specs together. We're looking to have everything going. The biggest challenge with the vehicle is that prices are going to go sky high after
1st. We've been pretty much told across the board from all the manufacturers. So we're going to be accelerating the entire process here in the next 2 months to have something on your desk for December for sure.
Yeah, many of the manufacturers are talking double-digit increases on a $500,000 vehicle. It's real money.
Makes sense.
Yeah, it's going to be 18, 19, 20 month.
So you'll see that coming along pretty quick. Tomorrow we'll have an update with the committee and pushing those, making some of those final selections, and we should have something ready for you by next month and it's actionable by December.
No one went to the show, right? To the fire?
FDIC.
I understood it was a terrible show. It was very flat.
Yeah, it was done kind of last minute and
Yeah, it got moved and just got.
and with all of the COVID related complications, both from the manufacturers being able to bring product to the show. In our own case, we had people scheduled to go and couldn't because of that, and that's the way it was. Pension board update, the transfer of funds has been completed, correct?
Oh, yes. Sorry, I didn't know you were talking.
So the funds have been moved down to the state, and so that part of the process is done. We were part of that first group that was done with. RFPs for roof repairs, we've discussed in previous meetings. Thankfully for us, Deputy Chief had done that at Warrenville, so he's getting that dialed in for, and then I don't know if you wish to speak to that or not. I didn't.
Yeah, no problem. The RFP, we'll be putting together an RFP in the next week or two, putting that on Demand Star, getting it published in the paper, and we'll put it out. Again, we'll try to, what I'd like to do is get everything kind of lined up so that in the spring, we're ready to go with that. But that's kind of what the timeline we'll be looking at that for an RFP going out.
The audit. So through no fault of staff here, there was a complication with Lauterbach and Amon, who has done our audit for a number of years with respect to some staffing issues internally there. They have put forth, and we have been granted all of the requisite extensions, and they are actively at work at that, and hope to have.
They said that'll be done before the end of the month, so it'll be on the November agenda.
And there was also a complication with its impact on the GEMT, but we were given
Till the end of the month as well.
and some numbers to make that happen. Property appraisal report, it's in the document that's under new business. And lastly, I would like to point out Village of Winfield hydrant flushing maintenance update, in case you'd seen signs around town. Compliments to the village that they've started doing some hydrant maintenance, and one of the things I want to point out is, because I've gotten a lot of questions about this, one of the things is those people that have said, you know, well, there's a black bag or a trash bag over the hydrant, and voicing concerns, and I would tend to explain it this way. I think that's actually a good thing, because I would rather that they were out doing their thing and we found out that it was broken now, instead of when it's 2 a.m. and we're having to fight a fire. So it's just part of getting the hydrant system up to full speed. And again, our appreciation to the village for getting going on that in earnest. So when we need them, we have them. And Mr. President, that's all I have to report you.
Is that village employees checking the hydrants, or did they hire a specific company that?
I believe it was Public Works employees, Village of Winfield Public Works employees, I believe.
They've always done it in the past.
Mr. Weiler, do you have anything to report?
Well, I do. On Monday, I had a court appearance in Wheaton, and so I took that opportunity to come to investigate a complaint about an unsightly commercial vehicle hogging multiple parking spaces in the station of, in the parking lot of Station 1. It turned out that that vehicle belonged to an organization known as SAS Lighting. So, but I was actually coming in to consult with the chief about an ongoing matter that we had, a personnel matter. But when I was there, I noticed two things that I think the board should be aware of. I mean, just in terms of the observation of the change in culture. So as I was just talking with the chief and also Trustee Sass, you know, who wouldn't give up any information, by the way. I mean, he wanted to talk to his lawyer about this, about the investigation. But I noticed that so the blinds were up in a little window between the conference room and the deputy chief's office. And I noticed that on the church pew that is against the wall before his office, there were a number of firefighters that were sitting in that pew. And one by one, they would go in and shut the door. And you could see their mouths moving. I didn't know what they were even saying. And then they would leave, and then the next person would get up, and the queue of people on the pew would move. And it gave me the impression that he was hearing confessions. And it didn't look like when they left that anybody had been given any absolution, and that some of them may have been given some penance. But I just noticed that the significance of that activity. And the other basis was that the chief had come in from a meeting and was actually engaged in doing a report on something that had happened within 12 hours of being able to do the report. So there's an extraordinary, I think the impact on the culture here is really what we expected. And I could, you could see it, and, the chief being relieved of having to answer this queue that happens every day. Okay. But also later in the day, I was contacted by the deputy chief about the RFP. And it was very, very clear that he understood the components of it, understood the complexity of what he was requesting, that we had an appropriate conversation about what was necessary in order to comply with the bidding statute, and he had a lot of leverage, and that's something that the chief would ordinarily have been involved in, that very, very time-consuming thing. And I think that you can notice that with the thoroughness of the chief's report today, is that he's, that what's ever happened is working. So, and I just wanted to indicate that it was just very apparent to me that it's hitting on all cylinders right away. It's a good thing. Getting the ground done.
Do we have any old business to discuss? No. Motion for the consent agenda?
Second. Comments just quickly. As of just before the meeting commenced, our current running total is 193 calls above our total year to date from last year. So we are on a pace to be well in excess of, if this holds, well in excess of 2,300 calls, which is an inordinate amount of work for one medic company and one fire company.
Say that again louder. Yes. Okay.
We are on pace, assuming the numbers and the trends continue, to be in excess of 2,300 calls for this year, which is an inordinate amount of work for one ambulance and one fire company.
It's also worth mentioning, you said 193 up as of present.
I'm sorry, 195 up as of.
And for all of September, we had 193 calls, which means we essentially are working 13 months and 12.
Right.
So it's, yeah.
Well, things will change. Thank you for rejecting that. I think that's something we should probably try to keep abreast of during all the meetings going forward.
Yes.
Consent agenda. We had a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. This business. We are going to discuss and possible action on surplus items declaration list. We're going to discuss what we got there, our whole list.
So, as I came in, there was clearly years of accumulation, which is a normal action. So I asked if we had a surplus process to where we declare things surplus, no longer usable by the district, and then determine ways of disposing of them so that we can maintain accountability of public records or anything that was spent through public funds. And that's kind of what this process attempts to do. So the guys were pretty excited. I got this. We started a list. And that's kind of what this, the recommendation, the way the list works, we'll get any information. The hose is all serviceable. We actually, one of the firefighters says they can donate that. There are departments in the South that would really, really appreciate having some hose. Any of this, but some of it's just out of service, and I try to determine what was out of service, and those would be just disposed of. There's no more usefulness to them. Some can be auctioned, some can be donated or auctioned. We can do either or with it. But I just wanted to make sure that we get that in the public minutes, account for people's what we do with their funds, and then be able to start processing a lot of just accumulated equipment out of the district at this time. So you'll probably, this will be kind of the beginning of it, and we'll see a continuation of this probably almost every month this season or something. It's as simple as looking through, and you guys can determine whether you agree with that, make recommendations any direction you want to go. And anything that ends up getting auctioned will go to drugdeals.com. They'll go on, and the revenues will go back in. I talked to
Robin.
You'll pay for
There goes my overtime. So Robin said that anything that comes back from the auction will go directly credit back to that line item, whatever it was coming out of. So that actually works out, especially for the small tools. So that's kind of a nice way to do that. So that's the plan.
I have a question.
Oh, yes.
Sorry, Bernie. So anything that, like you just said, like, I know places down south absolutely need stuff. But will there be costs to us to donate something? Because shipping costs are outrageous right now.
So every time I've done this, they came,
Okay.
it's just part of the deal.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, we don't need to.
Yeah.
Any costs. But that's a great question, to be honest with you, but yeah, we'll make sure.
And that is exactly the point of my comment, is that this all will culminate. There's a statute that governs this, and you've adopted ordinances from time to time, the disposition, and so they all culminate in an ordinance that would specify how this is going to be done, and whether or not any expenses of disposal are incurred, and what happens to the proceeds. So when this is all determined, we will put that into an ordinance and deal with that. And if there's a program, then the ordinances will just be drafted by the administration, and it'll be part of the packet every couple of months usually.
So there's no real action tonight on this.
No action, but at probably by the next meeting, we'll have a proposed ordinance.
And for public that's watching, you're probably thinking like, this is crazy, but they literally, like, on here is like a printer, a router, a surge protector, like they literally went through everything. So
I was glad to say the typewriter is listed as obsolete. I was very concerned otherwise.
it's probably a collector's item. That could probably go on
Well, that
eBay.
might actually be an auction item.
It was in full service, so we couldn't get a replacement ribbon for it.
Oh, my gosh.
But I just, so the public knows that like it literally is from large to small is what's on this list.
Absolutely. And this is great.
Good program. Overdid.
All right, we have discuss some possible action on sustainability report and right sizing the business.
So if everyone had the opportunity to read the cover memo and then the included information. This ties in to something that had been on the chief's report for several months in a row with respect to the property valuations in the assessment. So included in there, we emailed the reports from name of the place again, Marshall Stevens. Emailed the reports to all of the board members because each one of them was in excess of 100 pages. And included in this packet is the first several pages that give a thumbnail of their determinations. So we have that in here. We have included, we brought in, as you'll recall back from several months ago, a commercial real estate agent to give us his firm's opinion of possible values and what listing prices would be and that kind of thing, also included in this packet. And then lastly, we, as the board knows, had brought in an architecture firm for the for what would essentially be a proper station, functioning station on all three of those properties. So those are all of the numbers involved in what would cost and what is worth to try and figure out what we're going to do. We have 3 properties. We're operating out of one of them. Going back to the handout I gave in advance of the meeting, and this for people at home is information that is on our website. You can go find it. A response time analysis conducted by the Illinois Fire Chiefs Association. That study is on our website. You can look at it. This is out of that. This is simply the maps from that study in terms of how long or the National Fire Protection Association, NFPA, and Insurance Services Offices, ISO. Each of them have different metrics on which they grade how quickly we should be able to get from wherever we're stationed to someone's home in X number of miles or minutes, depending on which one, in a fire engine or a ladder truck. We don't have a ladder truck, but travel distance, and that goes into your ISO grade, which involves the insurance rating for homeowners insurance and property insurance for commercial occupancies. And standards that are governed, you should be able to make it to someone's house in 4 minutes. So all of that stuff involved in the maps. We have the 3 properties. We have information on what some values would be. Were we to dispense of those properties, if we were to build on them? So that's all of the different options, and it's a matter of us in the interest of reestablishing our strategic plan of how we want to move forward based on how long it takes to get from where to where, how much what's going to cost, and all the other stuff. Now, in conjunction with all of that, we staff has a scheduled meeting on October 28th with a financial advisor that and we're going to talk about this information and how that relates to what kind of debt load, bond issues, whatever else we can do, which will be, again, as we're starting to provide this information to the board and public, how all of this transpires, and then to what level we want to make what move. In the case of this, going back to the architectural submissions, which had a plan and a budget for the 3 properties, and in the case of Display Station 31, $3 million plus the added expense of housing the staff while the place was being constructed, which is bringing in trailers, which is a common thing when they're doing remodeling fire stations. And that number didn't include fixing the shell of the building, which is the roof, windows, doors, and sealing the basement area. So that number is going to be inflated probably by $100,000, or correction, probably about $1 million.
So this place needs how much again?
For this thing to have gone through a process and be a fully fixed up firehouse is probably looking at $4 million.
About $4 million for staying here and making it functional without including any additional staff, or is that's as it sits?
As it sits.
All right.
All staff and equipment that we currently have.
But yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And going back to were we to add staffing to this facility, we could fit Probably a couple more guys, maybe. Maybe. But anyone can come here and look through the windows and see that we couldn't fit another vehicle anywhere in here. So,
We can't tell what we have in there.
No.
so, and again, I'm not trying to steer the board in any direction. I'm trying to give you as much of the raw information and data as possible so we can make an informed decision about where we're moving forward for our community.
Right.
And this is where all of this information is stemming from. You know, and similar facts and figures with respect to Station 32. And going back to the maps from the response time analysis, how all of this interplays is a lot of the difficult conversations that we're going to need to have to arrive at this is where we're going moving forward. Other things with respect to this, again, I've said, and I've said repeatedly for years, we have 3 strategic needs. More people to respond to more calls. We need vehicles for them to respond in, good and proper vehicles. Right now, our fleet is not bad. We're working on it, but with COVID, we've got an ambulance that isn't getting built, just like Wheaton's ambulances aren't getting built. So we're stuck with what we've got until whatever happens. But we're working on addressing the fleet. It's just we're living in the world that we're living in. We're obviously working on a fire engine, so then we'll have a new fire engine that is more reliable, and then our fire engine that we have that is past its useful service life in frontline service will be able to become a proper reserve, because the reserve we have is literally non-functioning. It can't move under its own power, and it can't hold any water. And it is wholly unacceptable to not have any kind of reserve apparatus of our own. So we're working on getting that done, but we're at the
Takes time and money.
yeah, and given the current situation with the supply chain, we're kind of at the mercy of the conditions we're all living in. So, but I've always said, I don't think anyone can say that those haven't been my 3 talking points for my assessment of our operation throughout my administration. So it's how we arrive at handling all of that, in which facilities where, and then what impact is that going to have on what people live on the outskirts predominantly, which goes into the next part. And then that further goes into the funding matter, and what are our options? Do we, I mentioned it in here. It is a possibility to entertain conversations with either another district about consolidation, village with respect to municipal converting to a municipal department, all stuff which the attorney would be better served to speak to than me. But I've just every conceivable option. How can we make this happen to give our public the fire department that they should have? People have expectations. When I call 911, that someone's going to show up. They're going to show up quickly. They're going to be able to handle my emergency. They're going to have the equipment to properly handle my emergency. I believe in my heart that is the expectation of our community, and we're struggling to meet that. And so how do we take what we have to develop a more streamlined, efficient, and appropriate system for our community? And all of this is where we need to jump off into the conversations about how do we arrive at that.
So through these maps, here, a lot of thought process, a lot of change, a lot of options. Based on the option that we currently have, which is only one, which is staying right here, because the public doesn't seem to care if Station 2 opens. From Station 1, which is going to be the best map to show us if we were to start moving forward to see properties, which property would be the 2 that would be probably on the topic of discussion?
Probably
Which would be the best exhibit?
Exhibit 6. Winfield Fire Protection District response coverage from Station 1, which again, it predated the county numbering system. Station 1 is Station 31 at 35 miles an hour. Again, that's a standard. So if you look, the red and the blue are achievable.
Right.
The green is not achievable from our current station 3101. That's exhibit 6. So that tells you some of the stuff on the periphery that we would have difficulty meeting. Well, we couldn't meet the standard.
So now this would mean that, what's that subdivision called, that's right off of, that wooded subdivision off of Winfield Road, pretty area, I can't never remember the name. Off of County Farm Road, I'm sorry.
Hawthorne?
That Hawthorne Woods up there north, yeah, that's such a pretty area. So that's one of the areas that would be affected, correct? And then this.
Northwoods, I think you said.
Northwoods.
Yeah.
Okay, Northwoods. And then is this part of
Pine Creek.
That's Pine Creek.
That's Pine Creek.
Pine Creek.
Pine
Yep.
Creek, all of
The
it?
townhouses plus the
Townhouses
the single family home.
plus the residential, so that would be something that we'd be talking about.
Yeah, everything north of Tuckaway.
Okay, all right. And then south, almost everything south of Roosevelt Road, basically. No, not.
No,
Not everything.
stuff off of Mac
Stuff off
Road.
of
Mac and Cantini. Okay. I didn't bring my stronger glasses to read the smaller print, so I apologize.
Yeah, the blue enough.
Kind of split here. But yeah, so we're looking at the Cantini area, Pine Creek and
South Canteen.
South Cantini.
Mhm.
Okay, so that's something that we need to have maybe further conversations with. I don't know if it's something that we want to go as far as maybe talk to the other fire districts and see what their impressions are on something like that. But it's something that I think we might need to know as we go forward and start making decisions on how we're going to properly protect the people. The most important thing to me, and I'm sorry if I hurt anyone's feelings, is protect the people that work here. I think they're working 70, 80 hours a week, and someone's going to get tweaked, someone's going to fall, someone's going to get hurt if they're not already working through some hurt. So to me, my thought process with this is going to protect the people that are in this station, the people that we care about the most. It's going to also give them the energy and availability to protect the people closer to us and have the better response time, which is what people are paying for. So that's my concerns, and that's obviously going to be a topic of conversation that will go on a lot further than tonight. But it's something that I think we really have to address this. I mean, we've had 13 failed referendums. The expectations are that we're just going to be everywhere and just take care of everything and do it all with equipment that doesn't start, with equipment that's rusting, with equipment that's breaking down. Maybe we can buy some horses and pull the old trolley out and we can run behind it maybe. But these are the areas that are going to be affected first. I'm sure, because we're the lowest taxing district, that your taxes in that area are definitely going to go up. So it's something that we need to talk about to protect, again, to protect our guys and gals that work here, and make sure that they can go home to their families.
The deputy chief and I have a scheduled meeting, the 26th. The 26th with a GIS consultant, Global
Okay.
Information System
That's right.
consultant, to go through some mapping thing and figure out what kind of impacts there would be to the organization. So we're going to go. We already had scheduled to do that just to, again, provide additional information to the board. It's all about making informed decisions, and see what kind of impacts any of those type of moves would make.
Right.
Do we have based on the map, is there a way to generate addresses on the affected residences?
That's what
our
That's what we'll be working on.
Okay.
Is this on our website,
it is.
number 6 here?
It is.
Let's highlight it and let everyone see that this is what we're working off of.
It's for everyone watching, it's been put in the chat box, so you can.
Yeah.
It's in the chat box.
And our objective,
We spread it with your neighbors.
our objective is, we want to make sure everybody that we're servicing is within 4 minutes. And the green area is the area that's outside of 4 minutes. Right. Be clear.
Well, I have a question, Chief and Deputy, and this is all very new to you, but this study is 10 years old.
Yeah.
There are more streets
There's
in
more
town than
streets,
this.
yeah.
There's more large mass developments in town than this. I would have to think some of that would affect response time in general.
Traffic impacts as well. To your point.
I mean, the
As you say,
hospital
And
build
as
out,
we
like,
grow, as our town continues to grow, we're gonna attract more traffic. Our infrastructure is not gonna get any wider.
No, certainly, the benefit of this report is the fact that this is, in terms of the response time analysis that was created to address, is best case scenario, because things have degraded unquestionably since then.
And with all the new construction that's gonna be happening and all the new people in the apartment complex and whatnot, it's just gonna get more congested for us to even get out of this state.
It'll be hard. But this is where we're at. This is where we serve you
Do
from.
we have the number of calls for each area that we have highlighted in the green?
We don't, that's something that we can get and will probably be part of a forthcoming report. The impacts in most of these areas are residential, so they're nominal, but part of were we to go with this type of a strategy would involve modest decreases in call volume in incremental pieces, and then hopefully as part of that eventually take care of some of the commercial properties as well, which require more from the agency in terms of fire prevention issues, code enforcement, generally commercial occupancies relative to a residential occupancy would add more to our workload. So it would eventually, this would be part of a grander, longer term strategic plan to adopt this policy of right sizing to whatever we have is what we have, and that's what we'll be able to serve.
And two quick points. One is, this is all based on everybody being here, of course.
Yes.
No vehicles out, everybody's, no call actively happening, preventing crews from being available to that call wherever it is within the district. So I think is a key point to make. And secondly, having looked at these a lot in the past, 6 months ago, going through the election, all of that, I think it's worth noting that if we are to keep the size we have, the best option per the maps is to keep 32 and move to county farm per the maps, to keep the district at the size we are, which is why we've gone for referendum 13 times. And because of the fact that it fails, now potentially those options are removed from the table. And so I just want to make that very, very clear that we have, exactly, we have tried to do this the right way. We've tried to get what is deemed best, and we've been told no. And so that is what has now held our hand to having
Thank
to
you,
look at
Trustee
these
Hannon,
options.
and to your point, this is all based on data, not interpretations, not statistical analyses. This is all based on raw data.
Correct.
So where we're coming from is just the numbers are the numbers, and anyone can look at it. Similarly, we have, and the board members have seen it, hopefully members of the public have seen it. We have the raw data also on our website in the form of spreadsheets. This agency has this many staff companies. This agency runs this calls throughout the county, which is also available on our website. And I would encourage people to go look at it because it's all raw data, and it's sourced to either the county or one of the two dispatch centers in the two principal dispatch centers in the county. So it's all raw data that people can make their own analytical conclusions, which I would encourage them to do.
And updating this, as Janet indicated, is that there should also be an assessment of the number of conflicts between calls and the increased train traffic that's occurred since the merger of the railroads. That's one thing that we, that also needs to be looked at, is because how many of our calls are interrupted by train traffic?
Which is huge.
Yeah.
Huge. It's a big number.
Every 8 minutes or something like that, Todd, isn't it? Crazy like that?
Yeah.
Chief did a great job. Deputy Chief, I'm sure you helped. Thank you very much. I look forward to the new revised information that we're gonna get. I think that'll be based on today, right?
Yes.
Today back, so we'll have okay, great, good. I encourage you to share this with your neighbors. Exhibit 6 is what we're working off of here. That's where we're at in our world. Got a motion to pay the bill.
I have some new business.
So you have new business.
I have new business. I want to see if we could revise our agendas moving forward so that under remarks from the floor, we move it to, public comments, but also have a section for online public comments. And I would like to see public comments added to the end of the meeting, as well as at making sure we make a point of online comments, because it's the world we live in now, and frankly, we don't have the space to have an audience of 10 people tonight. We don't have the space to have them all here, especially when we're supposed to be distanced and
Right.
that. So I'd like to see that done. I would also like us to, with Steve and Eric, seeing what is allowed and what's not, have our packets be available online before the meeting. Because we ask for public comments and they don't know what's on our agenda other than, line items that are just bullet points. They don't know the in-depth. I'm sure had, some of these people been able to look through some of this, there would be comments. So I'd like to see, obviously you can't put things that haven't been approved, and there are certain things that would have to be left off, but
Well, it can always be added after a meeting.
yeah.
I mean, it certainly can be something, and public comments are always welcome. I mean.
But we encourage, if you see something in a previous meeting, don't hesitate to
Speak
bring
up.
it up in the following meeting.
Mr. Tibble did a great job talking about that tonight. Some things that we missed, some facts that we made, that we skipped on an opportunity to get some direct answers. So, we all need to be on our toes for that.
And I have one more thing.
I encourage us to follow what Jenny says. I think it's important to have, I like remarks from the floor up front, but I'd like comments at the.
Oh, I think we need them at the
too.
front and at the
Okay.
end.
I have no problems.
I also would like to see us investigating getting at least 2 more speaker and microphone things, because I hear nonstop from residents that do watch either live or after the fact that they can't hear the majority of us, except for those of us that really speak up. And I know that some people do not like to speak up and some people don't want to be heard, but this board has been all about being open and honest and being an open book. And we want the residents to know that we're an open book, and when they can't hear what's being said, I don't blame them for thinking that we're hiding something.
Okay.
So I know that they're probably not super cheap, but
So we need 2 more.
I would think at least 2, because I think ideally we'd want them between like every 2 people. And then, 1 that could be in the audience if there's public comments.
Are you counting Bernie as the people?
I can dish it out, George, but I can't. My feelings are hurt so easily.
Oh, I thought it's serious.
These are 2 big.
Let's find the expenditure to make it happen so that we can be heard more better. Heard more better. So.
I want to say, Jenny, I agree, having the opportunity for the public to speak about and see what they're actually being informed about, I think is both very, very good ideas with respect to, obviously, things that have to be approved cannot be put out until they're approved, but there's certainly a lot of informational things in that packet that would benefit the public, I believe.
Any more new business?
Yeah, just one quick thing, it doesn't require going into executive session, but at the last executive session, we reported a potential personnel matter. That has been resolved, so there will be no need to
Okay. Talk about
deal
that.
with the issues that we discussed.
I'll make a motion to pay bills.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
See you opposed? Okay. I would like to, we're not gonna make a decision, so we're going to adjourn into executive session.
Then there was 1 public comment that was in the chat box. Could that please be read into.
Yeah, sure.
Sue Hempy from Winfield said, a huge congratulations and warm welcome to your official swearing in to DC Eric Ermer and firefighter paramedic Rivera. Thank you for serving.
Nice, thank you.
Thank you.
The purpose of the motion, the purpose of the executive session.
Land acquisition, pending litigation, personnel salaries and or dis.
Is there any online comments?
Yeah, does anyone want to jump in? You can say like, good job or something. Like
You can raise your hand or put in the chat box.
You can say bad job. You can.
George, go home.
Yeah.
There's a good job. Mrs. Hempy says
We've
good
got-
job.
Thank you.
We've got one.
Can I just make a
Please,
statement too really quickly? Luke Allen from Winfield. I'd like to personally thank and publicly thank the chief for all the work he's done for 2 years, keeping the ship afloat in the craziest of times that he did not sign up for when he interviewed to be chief, but really honestly has kept this place together. And I don't know how much sleep he doesn't get, but I really just personally and publicly want to thank the chief for all the work he does on behalf of all the residents.
It's very kind. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
It means a
There you
lot.
go, chief.
That's from all of us.
So we are going to then adjourn into executive session. Okay.
I'll second it.
Um,
We have another message.
Oh, great.
Since you haven't voted yet. One person, Kate said she agreed with Jenny about posting packets ahead of time. As an observer, she would find it helpful. And resident Darren Mayman said, thank you for all the hard work and good work.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks. We'll do our best to get it up by November. Yeah, it shouldn't be that hard of a task. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you again.
Thanks, everybody.
We're going to be in take a quick break.